The Great Hall of the Galactic Senate was the largest room ever built by any species. It floated in the empty space between 3 star systems. A massive station made of crystal and metal that could hold 10,000 beings at once. Today, every seat was filled. Every eye, every sensor, every tentacle was pointed at the center stage where the fate of billions would be decided. High Archon Sithrak of the Valkyrie Dominion stood at the speaking platform. He was tall, almost 3 meters of scaled muscle and ancient pride. His eyes were yellow with black slits, and when he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall like thunder in a cave. For 1,000 years, we have watched the humans spread across our galaxy like a disease, Sithrak said. His clawed hands gripped the edges of the platform. They came to us as beggars. They came to us weak and broken. We showed them mercy. We let them live when we could have crushed them under our feet. The Valkyrie representatives behind him nodded and hissed their approval. They were a proud race, the oldest conquerors in the known galaxy. Their empire had stood for 15,000 years. They had defeated 100 species and ruled over 200 worlds. No one had ever won a war against the Valkyrie. And how do the humans repay our mercy? Sithrak continued, his voice rising. They expand into sacred space. They build colonies on worlds we marked as ours. They trade with our enemies. They look at us without fear, without respect, as if we are nothing more than animals in a display. He slammed his fist on the platform, and the sound rang through the hall. No more. Today, the Valkyrie Dominion declares war on the human collective. We will remind these young creatures why the galaxy once trembled at our name. We will teach them the lesson their ancestors forgot. The hall fell silent. Representatives from dozens of species looked at each other with worry and fear. The insectoid Chirix clicked their mandibles nervously. The crystalline Meldari dimmed their inner light, a sign of deep concern. The aquatic Ulu, floating in their water tanks, turned away as if they could not bear to watch. Everyone knew what this meant. The Valkyrie had 40,000 warships. Their soldiers were born for battle, trained from birth to fight and die for the Dominion. When they conquered a world, they did not show mercy. They made examples. And the humans? The humans were traders and artists. They were scientists and diplomats. They built beautiful things and told wonderful stories. They were spread across 300 worlds. But their military was small. Official records showed only 12,000 ships in their defense fleet. Against the Valkyrie war machine, they would be crushed in months, or so everyone believed. In the human section of the hall, Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat quietly and listened to every word. She was a small woman with dark hair turning gray at the edges. Her face showed no fear, no anger, no worry. She simply watched and listened, occasionally making notes on a small device in her hand. The other species noticed this. They whispered among themselves. Did the humans not understand what was happening? Did they not realize they were about to be destroyed? Perhaps they were in shock. Perhaps their minds could not accept the truth of their situation. When Sithrak finished his speech, the Senate moderator, an ancient Meldari named Crystal Voice in Darkness, turned to the human section. Ambassador Vasquez, the moderator said, their body glowing soft blue. You have heard the declaration of the Valkyrie Dominion. Do you wish to respond? Elena stood slowly. She straightened her simple gray suit and walked to the speaking platform. Her footsteps were the only sound in the massive hall. 10,000 beings held their breath. She reached the platform and looked up at Sithrak. He towered over her, his yellow eyes burning with hatred and contempt. His scales were the color of dried blood, and his teeth were sharp enough to tear through metal. Elena smiled at him. It was a small smile, polite and calm, like someone greeting an old friend at a dinner party. High Archon Sithrak, she said. Her voice was soft but clear, carried by the hall's perfect acoustics. On behalf of the human collective, I acknowledge your declaration of war. She paused and looked at her notes. We have received your list of demands. We have noted your grievances. We understand that you feel insulted and disrespected. Another pause. The hall waited. We will be in touch. That was all. Elena nodded politely to Sithrak, nodded to the moderator, and walked back to her seat. She sat down and continued making notes on her device as if nothing important had happened. The hall erupted in chaos. Species shouted questions and demands. The Chirix representatives rushed to their human counterparts, clicking frantically about evacuation plans. The Ulu sent diplomatic messages offering to mediate. The Meldari simply watched, their ancient minds trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Sithrak stood frozen on the platform. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen a reaction like this. When he had declared war on the Chirics, their representatives had wept and begged. When he had threatened the Ulu, they had immediately surrendered 3 star systems for peace. Every species in the galaxy knew to fear the Valkyrie, but this human woman had smiled at him. She had acknowledged his declaration like it was a minor business matter. She had said, "We will be in touch," as if he had asked for a meeting, not promised to destroy her entire civilization. "Ambassador Vasquez," Sithrak called out, his voice sharp, "do you not understand what I have said? This is war, total war. We will burn your worlds. We will destroy your fleets. We will make your people kneel before the Dominion." Elena looked up from her notes. Her expression was pleasant, patient, like a teacher dealing with a student who had asked a silly question. "Yes, High Archon. We understood perfectly. As I said, we will be in touch. Our diplomatic office will contact your people within the standard week to discuss logistics." "Logistics?" Sithrak repeated, confused. "Prisoner exchanges, treatment of civilians, protected zones for hospitals and schools, that sort of thing," Elena said. "We like to handle these matters professionally. I assume your people still follow the Galactic Conventions on warfare?" Sithrak did not answer. He did not know how to answer. The Valkyrie had never followed the conventions. They had always done whatever they wanted in war because no one could stop them. But something in the human's voice made him hesitate. Yes, of course," he finally said. "Wonderful." Elena smiled again. "Then we have nothing to worry about. Our teams will coordinate. I do hope this can be resolved quickly, High Archon. I have a grandson being born next month, and I would hate to miss the celebration." She turned back to her notes. Sithrak left the platform in silence. His advisors gathered around him, whispering questions and concerns. The other Valkyrie were confused and angry. This was not how conquered species behaved. This was not how prey acted when the predator announced the hunt. As the Senate session ended and beings began to leave the Great Hall, a young Chirix diplomat approached the human section. She had been studying humans for years, fascinated by their strange culture and stranger history. "Ambassador Vasquez," she said quietly, "forgive me, but I must ask. Are your people not afraid? The Valkyrie have never lost a war. Their fleet is massive. Their warriors are legendary." Elena looked at the young Chirix with something like kindness in her eyes. She reached out and gently touched the diplomat's armored shoulder. "My dear," she said softly, "the Valkyrie have been winning wars for 15,000 years. That is a very long time." She leaned closer. "But humans have been surviving for much longer. There is a difference between winning and surviving. The Valkyrie will learn this difference very soon." The ambassador gathered her things and left the hall, still making notes on her device, still smiling her small, calm smile. Behind her, the Valkyrie war machine began to move. 40,000 ships prepared for battle. Millions of soldiers sharpened their claws and loaded their weapons. They had no idea what was waiting for them in the dark spaces between the stars. Mars' orbital station Ares Prime hung in the red sky like a metal moon. It was the largest military base in human space, home to the High Command and the central brain of human defense. Deep inside its protected core, far from any window or outside sensor, the most powerful humans in the galaxy gathered for a meeting that would decide the future of their species. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen stood at the front of the room. He was 73 years old, but he looked 50. His hair was silver, his eyes were sharp, and his body was still strong from decades of military service and genetic treatments. Behind him, a massive screen showed the emblem of the Human Defense Force, a simple blue Earth surrounded by 300 stars, one for each colony world. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen said, his voice calm and steady, 3 hours ago, the Valkyrie Dominion declared total war on humanity. Their fleet of 40,000 warships is currently gathering at the border. Our intelligence suggests they will begin their invasion within 2 weeks. The room held 20 people, admirals, generals, scientists, and political leaders. They listened in silence. None of them looked worried. Defense Minister Amara Okonkwo, a tall woman with kind eyes and a soldier's posture, spoke first. "What is our response status, Admiral?" "Green across all sectors," Chen replied. "Operation Long Memory is ready to activate on your command." A young general near the back raised his hand. He was new to the high command, brought in just last year. "Admiral, forgive me, but I have to ask. The official records show we have 12,000 ships. The Velkari have 40,000. How exactly are we ready for this?" Chen smiled. It was the same calm smile Ambassador Vasquez had shown in the Senate Hall. "General Torres, what do you know about the First Contact War?" Torres shifted in his seat. "Basic history, sir. 1,000 years ago, the Velkari found humanity shortly after we developed faster-than-light travel. They attacked without warning. We lost 8 billion people in the first week. Earth itself was nearly destroyed. We only survived because the Chiriks and Ulu formed an alliance with us, and the Velkari decided we were not worth the trouble of total extermination." "Correct," Chen said. "Now let me tell you what the history books do not say." He pressed a button, and the screen behind him changed. It showed an old photograph of Earth, burning. Continents were on fire. Oceans were boiling. The planet that had given birth to humanity was dying. "This is what the Velkari did to us in 3 days," Chen said quietly. 3 days. We had no warning, no defense, no hope. They killed 8 billion human beings like they were stepping on insects. They laughed while our children burned. The room was silent. Everyone knew this history, but seeing the images made it real again. "When the war ended, humanity made a promise," Chen continued. "Not to the galaxy, not to our allies, to ourselves. We promised that we would never, ever be weak again. We promised that no species would ever have the power to do this to us twice." He pressed another button. The screen changed to show a timeline. For the first 100 years after the war, we rebuilt. We pretended to be broken and harmless. We let the galaxy think we were traumatized and peaceful. We smiled and traded and made art and asked for nothing. Another button. The screen showed hidden shipyards, massive construction facilities floating in the darkness between galaxies. For the next 900 years, we prepared. Chen began walking around the room, his voice growing stronger. We built shipyards in dark space, far from any star, where no one would ever look. We developed new weapons in secret laboratories buried under dead moons. We created technologies that we never sold, never showed, never even hinted at. The screen showed images of human soldiers, but they did not look like normal humans. They were taller, stronger, their eyes glowing faintly with inner light. "We changed ourselves," Chen said. "Genetic engineering, neural enhancement. The average human today is 3 times stronger than our ancestors. We can see in the dark. We can survive in vacuum for 10 minutes without a suit. We can communicate through thought alone using neural links that connect us faster than any radio." General Torres leaned forward, his eyes wide. "Sir, none of this is in any database I have access to." "Of course not," Chen replied. "This information is restricted to level Omega clearance. You are receiving that clearance now because we are going to war." He pressed another button. The screen showed a map of human space. 300 colony worlds spread across the galaxy. Then the map expanded, showing thousands of additional points of light. "We have over 2,000 hidden colonies in uncharted space," Chen explained. "Seed ship settlements with full industrial capability. Even if the Velkari burned every known human world, even if they found Earth and destroyed it completely, humanity would survive. We can never be wiped out. We made sure of that." Finally, Chen pressed the last button. The screen showed fleet numbers. The room gasped. "Our official fleet is 12,000 ships," Chen said. "Our actual fleet is 2.3 million vessels. Destroyers, carriers, battleships, and weapons platforms that the galaxy has never seen. All of them hidden in fold space pockets throughout our territory, waiting for the order to appear." Minister Okonkwo stood slowly. Her face showed no surprise, only grim satisfaction. She had known these secrets for 20 years. "Admiral Chen," she said formally, "what is your recommendation?" "We activate long memory in phases," Chen replied. "Phase 1. We let the Velkari enter our space. We let them think they are winning. We let them commit their forces deep into our territory. And then, Phase 2. We show them what 1,000 years of fear can build." The meeting continued for 3 more hours. Plans were reviewed, orders were given, and humanity's secret army began to wake up. In shipyards hidden in the endless dark, lights turned on for the first time in decades. Crews took their positions. Weapons were loaded. After the meeting, General Torres approached Admiral Chen privately. "Sir, I have to ask, he said quietly. Why did we wait? If we have had this power for centuries, why did we never use it? Why did we let other species suffer under Valkyrie expansion? Chen looked at the young general with tired eyes, eyes that had seen too much history. Because power changes people, son. Species too. The Valkyrie started as explorers. Did you know that? 15,000 years ago. They were scientists and poets. Then they discovered they were stronger than their neighbors. They discovered they could take what they wanted. And slowly, over thousands of years, they forgot how to be anything except conquerors. He put a hand on Torres's shoulder. We built this fleet to protect humanity. Not to rule. Not to conquer. The moment we use this power for anything except defense, we start becoming the Valkyrie. We start down a road that ends with us burning someone else's children. Torres nodded slowly, understanding. The Valkyrie made a choice 1,000 years ago, Chen said. They chose to attack us. They chose to make us their enemy. We have waited and hoped and prayed that they would change, that peace could last forever. But they have made their choice again. The Admiral walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Now they will learn what happens when you corner a species that has spent 1,000 years preparing to never be prey again. Far across the galaxy, the Valkyrie war fleet began its march toward human space. They sang songs of victory. They dreamed of conquest and glory. They had no idea that they were walking into a trap a millennium in the making. And in the dark spaces between the stars, 2.3 million human ships waited in silence, patient as stones, ready as wolves. The hunt was about to begin, but the Valkyrie had the roles reversed. They thought they were the hunters. They were wrong. Supreme Commander Rethik stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Vengeance, and watched human space grow larger in the viewing screen. His scales were polished to a shine. His armor was decorated with the symbols of 100 victories. He was the greatest warrior the Valkyrie had produced in 3 generations, and today he would add humanity to his list of conquered species. Commander, his tactical officer reported, we are entering the New Brisbane system. Long-range scans show one small planet, population approximately 2 million. No military vessels detected. Rethik smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. A mining colony. Perfect. We will make an example of this world. Broadcast our arrival on all channels. Let the humans know that their judgment has come. The Valkyrie fleet was magnificent. 5,000 warships, the advance force of the full armada, spread across the darkness like a swarm of metal predators. Each ship was armed with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Each ship carried soldiers bred for one purpose: war. The broadcast went out. Rethix's voice echoed across the star system. Humans of New Brisbane, I am Supreme Commander Rethix of the Valkyrie Dominion. Your civilization has insulted the Eternal Empire. The time of payment has come. You have 1 hour to evacuate your colony. Anyone who remains will be destroyed. This is your only warning. He sat back in his command chair and waited. On other worlds, this announcement had caused panic. Ships would flee in all directions. People would trample each other trying to escape. The weak always ran from the strong. 1 hour passed. The Valkyrie fleet moved closer to the planet. Tactical officers scanned for evacuation ships. There were none. Commander, the tactical officer said, confusion in his voice. The humans are not leaving. Our scans show normal activity on the surface. People are going to work. Children are going to school. They are ignoring us. Rethix leaned forward. They think we are bluffing. Send another message. Tell them we will begin orbital bombardment in 30 minutes. The message was sent. 30 minutes passed. Still no evacuation. No panic. No fear. Perhaps their communications are broken. An advisor suggested. Perhaps they are stupid. Another said. Rethix was not so sure. Something felt wrong. These humans had survived the first contact war. They had built 300 colony worlds. They were not stupid, so why were they not running? Prepare ground forces, he ordered. We will take this planet personally. I want to understand these creatures before we destroy them. 200 Valkyrie dropships fell toward New Brisbane like metal rain. Each ship carried 50 warriors in full battle armor, 10,000 of the finest soldiers in the galaxy, armed with plasma rifles and molecular blades, ready to crush any resistance. They landed on the outskirts of the largest city. The warriors poured out, forming perfect battle lines. Rethix himself led the advance, his personal guard surrounding him. The city looked normal. Buildings of metal and glass, streets paved with smart concrete, gardens and parks and fountains. It could have been any colony in the galaxy. And the people. The people were watching. They stood on balconies and rooftops. They gathered at windows. Old men, young women, children holding their parents' hands. They watched the Velkari army approach, and they did not run. A young human woman walked out of a building directly in the army's path. She wore simple work clothes. Her hands were dirty from labor. She looked at Rethix without fear. "You should not have come here," she said. Her voice was calm, almost sad. Rethix laughed. "Little human, do you know who I am? I have conquered 100 worlds. I have killed millions. Your entire colony could not stop me." The woman shook her head slowly. "You do not understand. We are not trying to stop you. We are trying to give you a chance to leave. This is your only warning." She was using his words. Rethix felt anger rising in his chest. This was an insult beyond tolerance. "Kill her," he ordered. A soldier raised his plasma rifle. He fired. The woman moved. She moved so fast that Rethix's enhanced eyes could barely track her. The plasma bolt passed through empty air. The woman was suddenly beside the soldier, her hand on his rifle. She twisted, and the weapon shattered like glass. Then the city came alive. They came from everywhere, from buildings and sewers and rooftops, humans of all ages, all appearances. But they moved like nothing Rethix had ever seen. They were faster than Velkari warriors. They were stronger. They moved in perfect coordination, as if sharing one mind. An old man, perhaps 80 years old, grabbed a Velkari shock trooper and threw him 30 meters into a wall. A teenage girl produced a weapon from nowhere and fired 3 perfect shots, disabling 3 soldiers before anyone could react. A group of children, no older than 10, operated a swarm of tiny drones that blinded Velkari sensors and communications. And the miners, the simple workers that Rethix had dismissed as weak civilians. They wore exoskeletons designed for heavy labor. Exoskeletons that, Rethix now realized, were also designed for war. They tore through Velkari armor like it was paper. "Fall back!" Rethix screamed into his communicator. "All units fall back to the dropships," but half his soldiers were already down. Not dead, he noticed with growing horror. Disabled. Captured. The humans were not killing unless they had to. They were taking prisoners with surgical precision. Rethix ran. For the first time in his life, the greatest warrior of the Velkari ran from a battle. He reached his dropship and launched toward orbit, leaving thousands of his soldiers behind. "Eternal vengeance," he broadcast desperately. "Begin orbital bombardment. Destroy everything." The flagship received the order. Weapons began to charge. Planet-killing beams of energy prepared to fire. Then space itself seemed to tear open. 200 human warships materialized from fold space, surrounding the Velkari fleet in an instant. They were not like any ships in the galactic records. They were sleek and dark, covered in weapons that Rethix did not recognize. A transmission came through. A human woman's face appeared on his screen. She was young, with sharp eyes and the bearing of a warrior. "Supreme Commander Rethix," she said calmly, "I am Captain Yuki Tanaka, of the human collective ship Defiance. Your weapons are currently targeting a civilian population of 2 million people, including 400,000 children." Rethix tried to speak, but the woman continued. "You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender. If you do not, we will demonstrate why that was a mistake." "You cannot threaten me," Rethix managed. "I have 5,000 ships. You have 200. Captain Tanaka smiled. It was a cold smile. 25 seconds. Rethix looked at his tactical display. The human ships were small, but their energy signatures were enormous. Each one radiated more power than 10 Velkari battleships combined. 20 seconds. His officers were looking at him, waiting for orders. Around them, the human ships had locked weapons on every Velkari vessel simultaneously. 15 seconds. "Power down weapons," Rethix whispered. "Commander?" his tactical officer asked, shocked. "Power down weapons," Rethix screamed. Now, the Velkari fleet went silent. The planet-killing beams died. 5,000 warships, the pride of the Dominion, sat helpless and defeated without firing a single shot. Captain Tanaka nodded. A wise choice, Commander. You will collect your forces from the surface and return to Valkyrie space immediately. You will not approach human territory again, and you will deliver a message to High Archon Sithrak. What message? Rethix asked. His voice was hollow, empty. Tell him that we gave you a chance. Tell him that we showed mercy. Tell him that next time, if there is a next time, we will not be so kind. The transmission ended. The human ships remained, watching, waiting. Rethix spent the next several hours collecting his surviving soldiers. Out of 10,000 warriors, only 3,000 returned. The rest were captured, treated medically, and released as a gesture of contempt. As his broken fleet limped away from New Brisbane, Rethix looked back at the small planet. 2 million people. Miners and workers and children. They had defeated the advance force of the greatest military in the galaxy, without breaking a sweat. What had humanity become in 1,000 years? What would the full response look like? Rethix did not want to know. But he knew he would have to tell Sithrak. And he knew, with cold certainty, that Sithrak would not listen. The real war was about to begin. The Palace of Eternal Scales was the oldest building in the Valkyrie Empire. It had stood for 12,000 years, built from the bones of the first species the Valkyrie had ever conquered. Its walls were covered with the trophies of 100 wars. Weapons, flags, skulls, and the preserved bodies of defeated enemies. Every room reminded visitors that the Valkyrie were masters of the galaxy. High Archon Sithrak sat on his throne and listened to Supreme Commander Rethix's report. With each word, his scales grew darker with rage. You are telling me, Sithrak said slowly, that 5,000 warships, 10,000 elite warriors, and the greatest military commander of our generation were defeated by a mining colony? Rethix knelt before the throne. His head was bowed in shame. The humans have changed, High Archon. They are not the species we fought 1,000 years ago. They are something else now. Something more. More? Sithrak stood from his throne. More than what? They are mammals. Soft creatures who die easily and reproduce slowly. They should be nothing to us. They moved faster than our warriors, Rethix said. They were stronger than our shock troops. Their civilians fought like soldiers. Their children operated weapons, and their ships. He paused, shuddering at the memory. 200 ships held 5,000 at bay without effort. Sithrak walked down the steps from his throne. His footsteps echoed in the vast hall. He stopped in front of Rethix and grabbed the commander's chin, forcing him to look up. I do not believe you, the High Archon said. I think you were afraid. I think you saw a few tricks and ran like a coward. The Valkyrie do not run. The Valkyrie do not lose. I am telling the truth, Rethix whispered. I have nothing left but truth. Sithrak released him in disgust. Leave my sight. I will deal with you later. As Rethix was dragged away by guards, a servant approached the throne. High Archon, there is a message from the human ambassador. She requests a private meeting to discuss the war. To surrender, you mean? Sithrak smiled. Very well. I will hear her beg for mercy. Send her in. The doors of the palace opened. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked in alone, carrying nothing but a small data device. She was still wearing her simple gray suit. She still had that calm smile on her face. Sithrak watched her approach with growing annoyance. The woman showed no fear, no respect, no awareness of where she was. She walked through the hall of conquered species like she was walking through a garden. High Archon Sithrak, she said, bowing her head slightly. Thank you for seeing me. I did not invite you here to talk, human, Sithrak replied. I invited you here to hear your surrender. Your forces embarrassed my commander at New Brisbane, but we both know it was a trick. You cannot stand against the full might of the Dominion. Elena nodded as if he had made a reasonable point. May I tell you a story, High Archon? It is relevant to our situation. Sithrak laughed. A story? You come to discuss the destruction of your species, and you want to tell me a story? Please, Elena said. It will only take a moment. The High Archon waved his hand dismissively. Fine. Amuse me. Tell your story. Elena pressed a button on her device, and a holographic image appeared between them. It showed a planet, a blue and green world with white clouds and silver oceans. This is Earth, she said, the homeworld of humanity, a small planet in an unremarkable solar system, not special in any way. The image changed. It showed humans from long ago, primitive creatures with stone tools. Humans evolved on Earth 200,000 years ago. We were not strong. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We could not run fast or see in the dark. By every measure, we should have died out quickly. The image changed again. Fire, tools, cities. But we survived. We survived ice ages that killed most other species. We survived plagues that destroyed half our population. We survived wars where we killed millions of each other. Every time death came for us, we found a way to live. Sithrak crossed his arms. Your point? My point is that survival is what humans do. It is what we are. We do not win through strength or speed. We win through stubbornness. We refuse to die. The image changed to show the first contact war. Earth burning. Humans dying by the billions. When your ancestors attacked us 1,000 years ago, you killed 8 billion of our people. 8 billion. Do you know how many humans existed at that time? 10 billion. You killed 80% of our species in a single week. She looked directly into Sithrak's eyes. Any other species would have surrendered. Any other species would have given up. But we did not. We fought with sticks and stones against your warships. We threw ourselves at your soldiers knowing we would die. We refused to stop until you decided we were not worth the effort. The image changed again. It showed the 1,000 years since the war. Humans building, growing, learning. After you left, we could have done many things. We could have hidden. We could have run to the far corners of the galaxy and hoped you would never find us. We could have become peaceful and accepted that we would always be weak. Elena's smile faded. For the first time, she looked serious. Instead, we decided to become strong. For 1,000 years, every human child has grown up knowing what you did to us. Every human adult has worked toward one goal, making sure it could never happen again. We have changed our bodies, our minds, our technology, everything about ourselves, all because of you. Sithrak felt something he had not felt in centuries. It was small, just a tiny seed, but it was there. Doubt. You are bluffing, he said, but his voice was less certain than before. I am not, Elena replied. Your species has known 10,000 years of dominance. You have conquered because you are strong, because you have always been strong. You have never needed to struggle for survival. You have never faced extinction. She stepped closer to him. Humans have faced extinction dozens of times. On Earth, we called them near-extinction events. Ice ages, plagues, world wars, an artificial intelligence that tried to wipe us out. Each time, we almost died. Each time, we survived and became stronger. Another step closer. There is a difference between a predator and a survivor, High Archon. Predators grow fat and lazy when there is no challenge. Survivors never stop adapting, never stop preparing, never stop expecting the next disaster. She was standing right in front of him now. This small human woman looking up at the greatest warrior of the Valkyrie. You asked if I came here to surrender. I did not. I came here to offer you a gift. What gift? Sithrak asked. The truth. And a choice. Elena's data device projected a final image. It showed the human fleet, not hundreds or thousands, but millions of ships, endless rows of warships filling the darkness of space. This is what 1,000 years of fear can build, she said softly. This is what happens when you give a survivor species a reason to prepare. Sithrak stared at the image. His scales were pale. His hands were shaking. If you continue this war, we will not conquer you, Elena continued. We will not enslave you. We do not want your worlds or your resources. We will simply defend ourselves. And when the war ends, as it must, your species will be broken and your empire will be gone. She reached out and touched his arm gently. But it does not have to end that way. The humans do not hate the Valkyrie. We fear you. Yes, we remember what you did, but we also know that species can change. We changed. You can too. She stepped back. I offer you peace. Real peace. Trade and cooperation and the chance to build something new. Your people and mine, working together instead of fighting. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. You have 1 week to decide. High Archon. Choose war, and you will learn what happens when you corner survivors. Choose peace, and you will learn that we can be the best friends the galaxy has ever seen. She walked out of the palace without looking back. Sithrak stood alone in his hall of conquered species. Around him, the trophies of 100 wars watched in silence. The skulls of defeated enemies seemed to whisper warnings he could not quite hear. For the first time in his life, the High Archon of the Valkyrie did not know what to do. 1 year had passed since the Valkyrie declared war on humanity. In that year, everything had changed. The Great Hall of the Galactic Senate was filled again, just as it had been on the day of the declaration. 10,000 beings from dozens of species watched as two figures walked to the central platform. One was High Archon Sithrak, his scales now tinged with gray, his posture less proud than before. The other was Ambassador Elena Vasquez, still wearing her simple gray suit, still carrying her small smile. Between them, on a table of polished crystal, lay a document, the Treaty of Reconciliation. The year had not been easy for the Valkyrie. After the defeat at New Brisbane, Sithrak had refused Elena's offer of peace. He had ordered the full invasion. Every ship and soldier the Dominion could gather. 40,000 warships had crossed into human space, expecting to crush the enemy with overwhelming force. They had been wrong. The human fleet appeared from nowhere, filling the darkness between stars like a sudden ocean. 2 million ships against 40,000. The Valkyrie commanders had stared at their screens in disbelief. This was impossible. No species had ever built such a force. No species had ever hidden such power. But there it was. The war had lasted 3 months. The humans did not attack. They did not need to. They simply surrounded every Valkyrie fleet, every convoy, every military base. They blocked supply lines and communication channels. They captured ships without firing a weapon, using technology the galaxy had never seen. The Valkyrie tried to fight. Their warriors were brave, their commanders experienced, but it made no difference. Every battle was over before it began. Every strategy was predicted and countered. The humans seemed to know what the Valkyrie would do before they did it. And the strangest thing, the humans did not kill unless they had to. Captured Valkyrie soldiers were treated well. They were fed and housed and given medical care. Some were even educated about human history, shown the records of the First Contact War and the 1,000 years that followed. Many of these soldiers returned home with new thoughts, new questions about everything they had believed. Within 3 months, the Valkyrie economy had collapsed. Their military was scattered. Their people were hungry and confused. Sithrak had no choice but to ask for peace. Now, in the Great Hall of the Senate, the war was officially ending. I, Sithrak, formerly High Archon of the Valkyrie Dominion, do hereby sign this Treaty of Reconciliation, Sithrak said. His voice was tired but clear. The Dominion is dissolved. In its place rises the Valkyrie Republic, a new government dedicated to cooperation rather than conquest. He signed the document with a traditional claw mark. The Senate was silent. Elena stepped forward. I, Elena Vasquez, Ambassador of the Human Collective, do hereby accept this treaty and pledge our friendship to the Valkyrie Republic. The past cannot be changed, but the future is ours to build together. She signed her name next to his mark. The Senate erupted in applause. Not just polite clapping, but genuine celebration. Species that had lived in fear of the Valkyrie for millennia were watching their oppressors become something new. It seemed like a miracle. But for many in the hall, the true miracle was what they had learned about humanity. The Chirix delegation watched with all 6 of their eyes fixed on the human section. For 1,000 years, they had seen humans as young and vulnerable allies, species to be protected. Now they understood that the humans had been protecting them all along. The Meldari, ancient and wise, glowed with complex patterns of light. Their crystalline minds were processing what this meant for the galaxy. A species that could have conquered everyone had chosen not to. A species that had built the greatest military force ever seen had used it only for defense. It was remarkable. It was unprecedented. The Ulu, floating in their water tanks, sent signals of respect and admiration across all frequencies. They had always known humans were special. Now everyone else knew too. After the ceremony, a grand reception was held in the Senate's celebration hall. Leaders and diplomats from every species mingled together, discussing the future in 100 languages. For the first time in living memory, there was no dominant power in the galaxy. There was only cooperation. Admiral Marcus Chen stood near a large window, looking out at the stars. He had removed his uniform jacket and held a glass of something golden. He looked tired but satisfied, like a man who had finished a very long journey. A young Chirix approached him. She was the same diplomat who had spoken to Ambassador Vasquez a year ago, after the declaration of war. Her name was Clicking Stars at Dawn, and she had spent the past year studying everything she could find about humans. Admiral Chen, she said nervously. May I ask you something? Chen smiled warmly. Of course, Ambassador. What would you like to know? I have studied your species for years, she said. I thought I understood you. But after everything that has happened, I realize I understood nothing. How did you do it? How did you hide such power for so long? And why did you not use it? Chen took a sip from his glass and considered the question. We hid it because we learned that power attracts enemies. The moment you show strength, others start to fear you. They form alliances against you. They look for weaknesses. We decided it was better to seem weak and be strong than to seem strong and be weak. But you could have conquered the galaxy, Clicking Stars said. You could have done what the Velkari did, but better. Why didn't you? Chen looked at her with something like sadness in his eyes. Because we remembered what it felt like to be conquered. We remembered our children burning. We remembered the fear and the helplessness and the rage, and we decided that we never wanted to make another species feel that way. He gestured at the celebration around them. Humans are not special because we are strong. We are special because we choose how to use our strength. The Velkari chose conquest. We chose protection. That choice is what defines us. Clicking Stars considered this for a long moment. Then she asked the question that had been burning in her mind since the day of the declaration. Were you ever afraid? When Sithrak announced the war? When his fleet crossed into your space? Was there no fear? Chen laughed softly. Of course we were afraid. We are always afraid. That is our greatest secret, Ambassador. He turned to face her fully. Other species see fear as weakness. They try to eliminate it, to breed it out, to train it away. But humans have learned that fear is a gift. Fear keeps you alert. Fear keeps you preparing. Fear keeps you humble. He looked back out at the stars. 1,000 years ago, the Velkari gave us the greatest gift they could have given. They made us afraid. And we used that fear to become something extraordinary. He finished his drink and set down the glass. 1,000 years of fear built those ships out there. 2 million vessels, hidden in the dark, waiting for the day we hoped would never come. Fear built them. But now that the fear is fading, we can build something better. What will you build? Clicking Stars asked. Chen smiled. It was a warm smile, full of hope. I do not know yet. That is the wonderful thing about the future. It is not written. We get to decide what it looks like. He patted the young ambassador on her armored shoulder. Imagine what 1,000 years of hope might build, Ambassador. Imagine what we could create if we stopped preparing for war and started preparing for peace. Imagine what all of us, every species in this galaxy, could accomplish together. Clicking Stars looked out at the stars. For the first time in her life, they did not seem cold and dangerous. They seemed full of possibility. I think I would like to see that, she said quietly. So would I, Chen replied. So would I. Outside the great windows of the Senate Hall, human and Velkari ships patrolled together for the first time. Former enemies flying side by side, protecting a peace that no one had thought possible. The galaxy watched in wonder. And somewhere, in the heart of human space, in quiet rooms and secret councils, the people who had spent 1,000 years preparing for war began to plan for something new. They began to plan for hope.